Hello, nerds of the world. How are you doing today? Whatever product development we are doing as of today is greatly inspired by the new product development game created long back, approximately 40 years back. Now, 40 years have passed, and there is a need for new product development game or new enterprise game. And luckily, I have today with me Andreas Schliep, who has created new enterprise game, and today we are going to talk to him about this particular game and see how it can help us and our enterprises in today's AI enabled world. Andreas, welcome to the Nerd Diary.
Yeah, hello, Daksh. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out. He is based out of Germany and Switzerland, and he actually helped organizations a lot in incorporating this new enterprise game and be an AI native organization. So, Andreas, before we start talking about that new enterprise game and AME3 framework which you have created, may I please request you to introduce a bit about yourself to the audience?
Yeah, of course. I'm kind of in my mid 50s and I have a software development background. So I started as a software developer back in, I think, 1993 and got into touch with processes like Scrum in 2004. So before then, agility for us meant, yeah, quality is if the customer pays the bill. And I used to work in small teams, so I never experienced this large corporation difficulties that many people experience today. On the other hand, that helped me to become sort of a full stack developer. So for me, done is done, and it's not, oh, I did my task and then I'm fine with that. And with that basis, Scrum was the ideal fit. So I became a full-time Scrum coach 2006, self-employed 2008. And I also was a certified Scrum trainer and became certified Scrum coach, now certified enterprise coach with Scrum Alliance in 2010. So and ever since, I work on multiple fronts. So on the one hand, to help organizations adopt these processes for themselves. On the other hand, to work with organizations like the Scrum Alliance to set up standards for education or for qualification criteria for trainers themselves.
Okay, that's quite a journey, Andy. So let me go to your new enterprise game, and I'm just sharing my screen. I wanted to start with what is the motivation for this? Why you thought of creating new enterprise game at this moment of time?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm just the co-creator. So the New Enterprise game was co-created with Peter Beck and myself. And Peter is my partner at the Scrum team, and we both came through this development of running Scrum trainings and adoptions all over the place. But over the past couple of years, we discovered several patterns that didn't totally match the way that Scrum would work on an enterprise level. So first of all, we tried it ourselves. So we tried to run our entire company with Scrum, but there were some gaps or some difficulties like how do you do Scrum with operations? How do you do Scrum with sales? And of course, there are some initiatives that try to Scrum everything. It's not actually the product development Scrum. So, and we also discovered several environments that were different, like non-software. So, non-software or non-actually product-related businesses, like logistics departments that were concerned with operations, or companies that were producing building parts, where actually the Scrum team consisted of a team of leaders or project managers. We also had the situation that several teams were using a Scrum-like process along with Kanban, which is a kind of normal nowadays. So I don't know if anybody could seriously do Scrum without applying Kanban today. That doesn't make sense. Um, but there's some workflow. On the other hand, there was some distinction, and I think this distinction has something to do with the inspect and adapt rhythm. It's a kind of retrospective cadence. So the way that you frequently come together and inspect and adapt. So the main product we're talking about is, it could be the product that the enterprise is creating, like software or the internal systems. But the main product that we're talking about, or the first one, is the enterprise itself. And so probably the name would be more correct if it would, we would say the new enterprise development game. So how do
Right.
we actually develop an enterprise for, but that would have been pretty long. So um, we were inspired by several initiatives like Scrum itself, large scale Scrum, of course, and they are great for the question like how do we develop a team or with how develop a product with multiple teams. That's just great, but they didn't answer the question how do we kind of move an organization ahead. And
Right.
so we took those patterns that we observed, what people actually did in the organizations, and try to codify it, to give things a name, to establish some kind of domain language. So
Right.
that's the history behind this.
Okay, that looks great, Andy. And just wondering what AME stands for.
Well, the original name was Game 3. So we said that it's a new enterprise game. And Game 1 was the new product development game by Nonaka and Takeyoshi. Game
Mhm.
2 was large scale Scrum or Scrum. And this is just Game 3, but we tried to publish their website and got blocked in many organizations. So we just skipped the game thing and it's now AIM3. But the whole idea was that, and you see it with some of the terminology like arena, is like if Scrum describes how a game is played on the base of one team and large scale Scrum describes some kind of a tournament, how do we describe the entire league or the entire stadium or whatever? So where multiple activities are going on. So
Okay,
that's the and it also got somehow inspired by Mike Beadle's Enterprise Scrum, which was pretty Scrum, pretty technical and pretty Scrum like.
okay, great. So we are going to look into this big picture, Andy, which you have co-created. Okay,
Mhm.
so we'll start with slightly leadership part, but before that, you have clearly mentioned about system. So for the people who are working in enterprises today, what is the meaning of system for them? What should they consider as system? Is it everything that is there in the organization, or is it something that is actually produced by the organization? What is the system?
So what? Yeah, of course, system is sometimes an inflationary term. So when we talk about operational system, we refer to AIM3 itself. So which means it's a kind of coherent set of rules and leadership functions and strategical paradigms that you can apply to an organization. But of course, when we talk about the system of the organization itself, we mean everything. So everything that belongs into the container of that enterprise.
Right. So I was really impressed by these blocks, Andy, and I would just like to start with the leadership part. So you have created an arena, enterprise arena with leadership in between, and I can see
Mhm.
there are some different roles that are there. What is the idea behind this kind of setup, and how this setup will help today's organization?
So once again, it's not just something that we invented, but that we observed. So these are actually codified success patterns. So the first thing should be obvious. Nothing goes without an owner. So in Scrum, we call this product owner, but we say that there needs to be a clear distinctive ownership for both the enterprise and the part that we're looking at, which we call arena. So ownership means the full authority over the budget, the full competency to hire and fire people, to set the business goals. So the main purpose of the owner is the return on invest, or if you call it to run the business. So there are other models that would call this role the business owner. And the second most important role or function is the team, of course. And team is currently just a placeholder. You could also call it crew or the people doing the work or whatever. Um, we chose to call it team because we still say that even if they're working in multiple teams, they should regard themselves as a team of teams or as a unit with a shared goal or ambition that works together to reach this goal. So that's the main factor. So even in logistics departments where you have people working on the logistics software and other people actually storing items in the storage room, um, yeah, even then they should regard themselves as all part of a bigger whole. And the goal is to provide the optimal services both for the internal organization and the external customers or suppliers of this logistics department. So, but of course, there's a third challenge. So just ownership and delivery or working on the solution are sometimes not enough. And Scrum introduced something like a Scrum Master. So the problem with the Scrum Master role, we tried to do something like this, like to have a coach or whatever. The problem with the Scrum Master role is that it typically doesn't come with real disciplinary authority. So
Right.
we need someone who's able to internally um, work on the work system. So, yeah, they could also be called system owner, but we chose system lead. It's an actual leader. So they need to know everything agile coaches or scrum masters know, but their main purpose is to set up this environment within the work system so that the teams can work towards reaching the goal.
Right. So I can see that in an enterprise there can be multiple arenas, right? And each arenas can be catering to a specific set of customers, and the goal is related to what can satisfy the customer, internal or external. Good. So the next question that comes by looking at this is that is this AI native or AI ready? Is this structure you are proposing? If yes, how do you say that it's AI native or AI ready?
Um, well, the AI readiness. If you want to talk about this aspect, you need to see that AI challenges us at three levels. So the first level is the one that people practically see every day. The operational level is how do we do our work, and of course, people can use AI to kind of speed up the work to amplify it, which is totally fine. So, and this model supports self-organizing around these tools and whatever. So that's the simplest part. But then we have the um, area of what we're actually working on. So the requirements, the elements that form a business or product. So in this area, of course, this model will support uh, yeah, more flexibility and changes. So just like Scrum, where Scrum would allow to change your product backlog all the time, this should also be a way to adjust organizational requirements on a frequent basis. So, and the next thing, so besides on how do we do the work and what are the elements of the work, is the purpose of the organization itself. So AI might challenge entire industries. So, which means that we also need a strategical approach. And this is the main part that AIMS 3 comes with. It's not limited to the operational area, like how do teams coordinate their work. It's kind of set up mostly in the phase of the strategy to goal setting area. So, how do we steer the entire arenas? That's also while we are kind of fuzzy or vague regarding how do we fill the arena, we rather talk about how do we set up the arena, cut the arena properly, and let other processes or frameworks like Kanban or large scale Scrum do the work within the arena. Yeah? So our focus is that we kind of establish these strategical doctrine, like Simon Wardley would call them, so that we have this steering. So what comes AI? Well, AI requires a higher degree of adaptiveness, which means that somehow through AI, the variability in our environment rises exponentially, which means that we also need to increase the number of possible reactions that we have within our system.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, because as the variability grows, the number of reactions also grows. I think it's similar to what you say, that the score of number of people in the team, the if you increase the number of people, your communication channel grows exponentially. That's a good thing, actually. Coming to the strategy part of it, I like this strategy as an inbuilt thing in your framework,
Mhm.
because many a times, based on my experience, I have seen that strategy is generally a kind of byproduct of the work you want to do, rather than as a precursor of work you want to do. So your first circle, which talks about empirical control, advance, assess, and anticipate. Can you throw some lights on how this circle, which is the first part of the circle, and how it goes?
Yeah, well, this is actually one of the easier things to explain because this is just um, something that you know in many other frameworks like Plan, Do, Check, Act or Plan, Do, Study, Act or Build, Measure, Learn or whatever. You always find some kind of reflective loop within there.
Right.
The empirical control in AIM 3 has three main elements because we kind of combined several phases. So it's just a different cut between those things. So the first thing is that we anticipate what comes next based on analysis, based on our strategical observation. We kind of anticipate and prepare what we're going to do. And this is also the main thing which is done on the enterprise level. So what projects are we working on, what products or improvements are supposed to get into the backlog or whatever. This is the anticipation part. The advancement happens on the arena level, which means that this is actually where the work is done, however the work is done, which typically is the biggest part. And then there comes an assessment, which means that we analyze the results and see what can we learn from this advancement. So maybe we could anticipate an initiative to reduce defects within the software development, then advance with any kind of actions plan. And we assess the results, whether we really got a defect reduction, but also what we learned within the process, which typically means that we talk about improvement goals on the level of how a system performs or product performs, but also on we perform in improving the system.
Right. And I think, when we were talking about AI, this is the anticipate part is where you can um, use AI in a better way, and it can help you to maybe reduce your risks of anticipation. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So AI is both part of the problem and part of the solution. So it's part of the problem because of rapidly changing environment conditions, and it's part of the solutions because the anticipation, the analysis of how our business works, how the value streams is composed, how the value chain is composed. Um, this can greatly be simplified with AI methods. I wouldn't say the decision making itself because we still need human decisions in the loop, but the way to provide the data and present the data in a form that helps to speed up this decision making process is really great with AI. So, for instance, we use AI to generate Wortley maps for whole industries or based on what we know about organizations. We created a Wortley map for ourselves, and we anticipated like 3 years ago that the Scrum training market would go down, which is doing now. And
Right.
so we started on working on other concepts. So that was one of our first applications of this strategical loop. So the advancement, this is the whole area of tooling of AI, like use AI to derive acceptance criteria from backlog items, but also support teams to implement whatever needs to get implemented on a process level. And the assessment, of course, AI helps to gather information from various data sources and aggregate them in a way that we have the best way to interpret them and come up with the next advancement step.
Right. So, coming to the next circle of evolution focus, I can see that the path is pretty much similar to what many products take. Start from some kind of conception, genesis, then it becomes a commodity towards the end. I was a bit surprised that you put this particular part within the strategy. So can you tell us that why this particular evolution focus is in strategy, and how strategy will be um, implemented here, and what kind of strategy we can look for in this particular circle?
Yeah. Well, yeah, to understand this in the detail, you want to look into like the work of Simon Wardley, this Wardley mapping. But the short form is that everything evolves based on supply and demand competition. So it's not just a chain like how we build a product. It's not just a product life cycle. It's the whole value chain of a product. It contains of multiple components like activities or data or um, knowledge that we have or practices that we apply. And one way to see this is like an aesthetic view, like we just think about how our system is working now. But if we take this dynamic view, the evolution focus, we kind of improve our adaptiveness. So the ability to adapt to the upcoming evolution. So what is happening in the AI market, for instance? So if you see that several services are kind of currently co-developing, then you might have some strategical address points where to go. If you see that you have components in your system which are way behind the current evolutionary state within the market, like you still host your own data center, while it's technically possible to um, have serverless functions for the same thing in your environment, yeah, then you kind of get another insight. So the evolution focus helps to determine your strategical areas of improvement. And the idea is not only to raise your adaptiveness, which means that you react faster to the um, yeah, yeah, like the variability also. So what that would mean, like your own variability, your own ability to react on environmental factors would be the same as the change of environmental factors. But we want to kind of have, we want to have a factor greater than zero, which means that we anticipate environmental changes so that we, and that's the whole idea of a book title, Out Evolve, so that we kind of overtake them or be there before they come. So, and you can only get to this if you have a strategical focus on the evolution, not only of your own services, but the whole market.
Right. So just a point that the book Out Evolve you talked about, to the people listening, I'm gonna share the link of this particular book in the description. You can read it,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, or you can buy it from Amazon. I went through some of the chapters and looked into this particular AME3 framework. It really interests me, and I am more than willing to see some organization betting things into this particular framework. Now, what I heard from you, Andy, is that your strategy in evolution is more like, you can predict in advance. That's what your strategy should be, because the change in environment is gonna be same for everyone, and reactive approach is gonna be pretty much same for everyone. But how you can preempt and or predict those changes so that you can take a better decision about the path that your product is taking. Am I understanding it right?
Hmm. Yeah, there are certain patterns. So when you build on do the research of Simon Watt, you will see that there are several patterns coming along. So it's some at some point of time, although it sounds very complex, it's actually rather easy. So imagine like a game of chess. If you just talk about a game of chess by what moves your one side is doing, then you won't get the game. But if you see the board, you immediately, if you have played a little while, then you immediately see some threads or things that are supposed to happen, like directions of movement or possible positions that are weak or whatever. And it's similar to Wardley mapping. So once you created this map and you have the evolution in your mind, then you can see where things are probably likely to change or where you are blocked. So, and these typical patterns help to anticipate what's going to happen. So, Simon, what is that? Typically, you can say what's going to happen or when, not both at the same time. So, for instance, we knew the Scrum training market would collapse in the way it used to be before, especially with the upcoming of AI. But we couldn't tell when. So we couldn't say exactly 25 or 28 or whatever, but we knew it was going to come. Um, it's not really a glass ball. It's kind of more putting things into relation to open up to see the entire board. Now how the figures are moving and kind of anticipate what's gonna happen if the things moved into a specific way.
Right. And the analogy to chess is a very good example you had given, Andy, because, when you are playing the chess, being a chess player myself, I can, see what are the patterns that are emerging from, environment, in this case, my opponent. And I can take actions before my opponent take those actions to safeguard myself. And that's a very good
Right.
analogy to talk
Yeah.
about evolution focus. So we'll come back to the third circle of this overall optimization in the strategy.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
some points on here.
So I get back to the example of AI. So currently we have a situation in many organizations, AI is not really managed in a way that it's kind of put into use to the benefit of all. um, it's kind of allowed, but partially forbidden. So people might use Copilot, but not use Cloud Code or whatever. And with this kind of patchwork, people look to uh, they kind of come up with their own shortcuts to make the work easier. So you have some kind of chaos in organizations. In this situation, any attempt to improve some processes like software delivery or decision-making process or whatever that only focuses on this process will only amplify the current organization. So, for instance, if you have a problem with getting good requirements and you start developing with AI, you will get more crap out faster than before. So the overall optimization means that however um, good the prospects are for some improvements in some areas, you should look at the entire thing first. Yeah. So that's why one of the workshops that we're offering is an AI strategy workshop where you can meet up with like minds, create a picture of your landscape and figure out, okay, how do we do this? And one of the factors that we actually put into the view on this overall optimization is how good are we at doing this? How good are we at introducing the guidelines for AI use to all team members, for instance? So if we observe things like these as well, which means that we have one view, and at some point of time we need to simplify the map, but we have one view that contains both technical aspects and social aspects.
Right. So, I can share one example from my experience also, and I like this overall optimization point because think about generation of code. The speed has become, let's say, 200x or 500x, right, as compared to what humans used to do. But are you able to deliver those things at those speeds? Because it's not only the bottleneck on your DevOps system or ability to confirm review by humans, it's also about your customers' ability to
Yeah,
consume those things, right?
yeah.
So your customers may not be, it's not that they will like UI being changed every 2 hours or so, right? So you have to come up with a sequence of things which optimize you as a whole, and you have to have a strategy for that, not looking for one part, speeding up one part of the system that may have a detrimental effect. That's what I believe you were trying to say, Andy.
Yes, yes, and I don't exclude myself. So it's like at one point of time, I built a software with AI, and pretty good, I would say. There were still some small issues, but it's in productive use. So quite recently, but that doesn't change the fact that I probably shouldn't have started that at all because yeah, it consumed time and there were other strategical like thoughts or priorities that I should have taken care of. So it doesn't help you, but just by doing a thing better doesn't help you if you do the wrong thing. And the idea is, and this is why these three main things, of course, if you go into Wortley's doctrine, you find more things that you should install. And some of these three main strategical directives are summaries or aggregates, again, of what Simon Wortley wrote. But they belong together. So the empirical control is something that you get from processes like Scrum, but also process improvement. Itself, it's nothing special. And the overall optimization is a part of lean, so of the lean philosophy, and also part of Kanban. Okay, so the new factor and what really makes it a new game is the evolution focus that kind of relates to the two and binds them together with a unique perspective.
Great. So we talked about leadership strategy. We'll have to talk about the rules now. So I can see this, again in a kind of circular format, which means things will be happening in cycles. Uh,
Mhm.
where should I start in this particular picture, Andy?
Um, well, this is something in detail. You actually see this in the playbook itself, which is also on the poster. But the playbook is very small. It looks complex, more complex than it is. So the thing is, of course, you need to start if you have nothing with the enterprise owner. So a person, or sometimes a group, but we prefer a person who says, "We want to do this. We want to try this." And they do some assessment. So they identify possible areas where an arena could work, and they kind of agree with the accountable representatives, and people call them stakeholders, on how to go about this. So they actually create an enterprise backlog, which is a set of high-level goals or ambitions, as we call them, it should be fed into the arena, let's say the first arena. And the first part of the enterprise backlog could be we find someone who takes the role of an enterprise system lead and helps to set up the first arena. Or the first entry could be we find an owner for the arena, or we set the goal. But these things need to be in place. We need to be able to kind of direct the system. We need to be able to nurture the system, and of course we need people who do the work. So but if the arena is in place, if those initial steps, like let's say the initial steps are in place, we have a cycle called the tournament that could run for a month or maybe not much longer, that goes through the enterprise backlog, selects the next goal for each arena, um, and lets those arenas actually so that's the anticipation, take care of the implementation of the goal, how they reach it. So the tournament cycle itself doesn't have the advancement part, or the advancement part of the tournament cycle is the full cycle of the thing that we call the match within the arena. So the enterprise prepares the content or the goal of the match, and the owner actually breaks it down into a kind of arena backlog. That doesn't necessarily means that all the work needs to be done in Scrum. So you can mainly see that we have three levels here. We have the purpose level, so which is the main part of the arena backlog, but we also have the work level or the product level, which is everything that contains how the product is being developed or performed, because a product could also be a service. And we have the operational level. So of course, we try to optimize the whole, but this happens within the arena. So the arena has the anticipation cycle. These are the improvements of our arena product. Um, they go through with the teams how to implement those. They assess the thing, and the feedback is fed back into the tournament cycle.
Right. So, I really like, starting from tournament and going to the tactics. And recently, if you think about the football World Cup, I guess all of the team started with some kind of tournament strategy, and they went to
Yep.
each and every match with some kind of tactics that is there, right? So pretty much similar gaming philosophy we are putting over here, that you have to have this enterprise level things done. So consider that as a strategy for the tournament. And each and every match is unique, it's different, its environment is different, the opponent is different, some kind of problem you will face will be different. So you have your match specific tactics, win the match, and then reiterate on the tournament.
Yeah. So yeah, and the idea is, of course, this only works if Arena are kind of as autonomous enough so to um, really work on most parts of their product on their own. So arenas are not like, say, value streams. They are not just distinguished chains that are optimized for external control. So arenas are optimized for self-management. So if two arenas need to work together, they don't communicate via their owners. They should communicate with each other. That's the idea.
Yes, and again, giving the analogy of the football matches that are happening. So it should be autonomous, because when players are on the field, you don't control them. They have to be self-organized, autonomous to take a decision which is in best possible interest of the outcome. So this is what you are also saying over here, is that once the things goes to the arena, uh, it should not be too much directed from the outside. Otherwise it will lead to less self organization, and it will impact the goal.
Yes, of course. But you could also see a similar way. So if you happen to have a company that just contains of one software developing Scrum team,
Right.
then of course the enterprise owner would be identical with the owner. They would be the product owner, and the system lead. I don't know. Maybe it would be a team lead who also takes over the Scrum Master function, and you have this team of developers doing this stuff, and you could put almost everything on the product backlog, all the improvements of product and the system. The only thing that wouldn't work is when someone asks for a proposal because you don't want to. But technically, you could also do this in a Scrum-like process, where you allow some room for incidents. So that would be the easiest way to do this. But we didn't design this concept to replace Scrum. We did design this because we saw so many failing or not really not really glorified implementations that went from a team-based process and try to scale this one up. So we
Right.
don't have another scaled up team process. We have a enterprise process which breaks down or which ties or has interfaces to the team processes.
Right. Just curious. You said about one person Scrum team. I know in the world of AI, it may very well be a possibility. But are you seeing some teams which are just one person Scrum teams as of today, or seeing some indications of that happening in the near future?
There are no one-person Scrum teams. That's just not possible because there are no one-person teams. So, and even if people like Jeff Sutherland write about agentic teams, these are still simulations. So, which is an important part, of course. So it's a very good thing to run multiple agents and have them have different perspectives and run against each other. But we still believe in actual teamwork between people. So essentially, we still need humans in the loop, and we need more than two. So that's the main factor. Even if we have a team of three people running everything. And this is kind of represented in the ways also the teams are supposed to interact. Yeah.
Right.
So and we rather talk about not AI replacing teams, but enhancing teams. So the capabilities of teams rise. Teams can more easily approach different work domains or different technical implementations. So that's, of course, an important factor.
Right. I have recently heard in read in LinkedIn somewhere. I'm not sure about the whether that information is correct or not, but many people posted that about IKEA, the Swedish giant furniture company. Some of their jobs were, overtaken by AI, but they didn't fire anyone. They made them designers, so they are enabling them to, kind of increase the reach and design options of IKEA. And I found it really useful because, if you are having some kind of resources that are available, you can expand it to other things rather than just being at the same place even after your AI transition. So I really like that example.
And of course, which is also totally compatible with the evolutionary view. So um, team com team compositions and team purposes are also evolving. So like in the beginning, we had some teams that were highly functional. That came along when we talk about programming with the first programming languages, which are also functional and which kind of encourage people doing different jobs like coding and testing and whatever. Um, then we came with agile methodologies, and those agile methodologies brought along the idea of the cross-functional teams because agile in functional teams is kind of bummer. It doesn't really work. You have some better integration, but if everybody is working on different projects anyway, where's the point of daily meetings, for instance?
Right.
So, yeah. So agile processes encourage cross-functional teams, and the evolution of engineering practices and DevOps also brought new teams like the whole teams or the three amigos or other concepts. So what's happening now is that we get AI enhanced teams that will also influence how the team setup be. So maybe teams are smaller, have broader capacities, but there will still be human teamwork. And I think it's still important both from the social but also from a results perspective.
Right.
So yeah, uh, um, uh, an AI rather encourages you to continue doing something because you're already on it, while a real teammate would probably come up with a sanity check, like should you be doing this or should you be doing this way, and this will still have a role in the future. So, however, coding monkeys are already out evolved. So people who are limited to their own speciality and who don't want to talk to customers and who don't want to figure out. So when I started as a software developer in a very small boutique, like 30 people, um, they had two kinds of customer-facing project managers.
Hmm.
So the ones who could code and the ones who couldn't.
Right.
So essentially, from among us developers, everybody was their own project manager. We had the customer contact. We took the requirements. We designed the system. We kind of coded. We need to coordinate how to work with graphic departments or suppliers or whatever in order to get the job done. I was shocked when I came to a big company as a Scrum coach first, where people just doing one thing and they were not allowed to work on the next component, even if they found a bug there. I once fixed a bug myself that I found in our login processor,
Right.
and I just fixed it and checked it in, and I had to roll it back because my manager said you're not supposed to work on that. And I said, but it wasn't working before, and now it's working. And he said, yeah, but it's not yours. I said, well, neither is what I'm working on because it all belongs to the bosses. Of course,
Right.
it's not mine, but I don't care if it's mine. I care if it's working or not. But that didn't fit the mentality over there. Yeah.
You reminded me of my own startup days. I started my career in the year 2000 in a startup, and when I went into that startup, we had only three people working on two different products. And from talking to the customer to creating document to writing code to testing to get the user acceptance testing to get it verified from the customer, everything was done by individuals like me. And when after the startup was sold, when I joined back to a big company, I got same kind of surprise that you were saying about, like, there are things that are actually divided, that you are supposed to focus here, but the focus on outcome was not there. If everybody is contributing to the outcome irrespective of the roles, like you are a scrum master fixing the bug, that's great, take the fix and move ahead. I'm not sure why people are not taking that. And this mindset, I believe, Andy, has hurts us. It was responsible for decline of many big corporations, because if you see the speed of innovation, when less people were there, the innovations were higher, statistically speaking, and more people was not linear growth of innovation. Yep, that's something. So I just wanted to tell the people who are watching this, this is not something that I am actually I got from Andy. It's there in the website ame3.ai. It has everything, like how it works, and all the playbook, and how you can get started on this. And this PDF is also, it's a big picture. It's also from here. Now, before we are reaching towards the end of this, but I wanted to understand about the playbook. Andy, can someone just follow these instructions and start using AME3, or how should they look into this playbook?
Well, of course, I get back to the example of chess. So chess contains many playbooks like a catalog of openings. And they are very illustrative, and you should study them. You should understand what's happening. And this is some kind like a chess opening. It works until it doesn't. So, and as long as your opponent plays along or the situation develops just as in the book, it's already fine. But at one point of time, and that's the key to winning, you have to adapt your strategy because, yeah, like sometimes even you play against a weaker opponent and they make a mistake by not following the script, and all of a sudden you need to react yourself because you can't follow your script any longer. So it's just an opening. It's a playbook that illustrates how to get started, which should work in general. But of course, it's something that you also should revise frequently. Yeah? Um, it's it's not really rocket science. So the first thing is that you need to know what you talk about. So it's like if you scroll down, you start the game in the enterprise, and once you have your arena defined, which is in this part, then you see that you actually need to find out what are we actually working on. It's a greenfield new product. It's an existing work system, or are we in trouble? And they have some a different path how you should go about it. But again, it's not like a fixed process, and there's no process audit in AIM3 that tells you, or you followed this plan exactly. It's just a way how you could go along this. Yeah? So you study this opening, you practice it, and once you're in the game, you will see where it doesn't fit or where you need to go step back or try a different approach.
Okay, great. So, thank you, Andy, for sharing this particular AME3 framework. It was really interesting. Would you like to talk something about your book Out Evolve? It describes pretty much whatever we discuss, and what are the additional things we can get from your book?
Well, so currently the book doesn't contain anything which is not also on the website. But the difference is the order. So we put the whole things in a meaningful order, which actually gives you the chance to read it, and the way the train of thoughts. But otherwise, the information is the same on the web, and the information is open source. So it's not like we come up with a AIM3 licensing model that you have to where you have to pay money in order to use it. So M3 is open source. All we want to have are credits. Yeah, and you can just call yourself M3 author. Only Pitt and I can do this, but otherwise everybody's free to use it. And the website itself is also built in an AI-friendly manner, which means that you can use your favorite system, like you can use Claude Opus, run it against it. It can read the entire book in one place and help you with reasoning along this or draw maps or other things. And that's what we already started doing. Yeah. Teach our AIs this knowledge. So, but if you go through the book, then you will see actually how these elements are tied together, and you get a more coherent picture than if you just try to go through the website randomly.
Right. So, for the interest of audience, it's Creative Commons 4 license, which means you can use it commercially also, but you have to give the credit even if you are using it right as it is, or you are doing some changes to it. You have to give back the credit to the original creator, which is you and your co-author. What's his name? I forgot. Andy.
Peter Beck.
Peter Beck. Yes, Peter Beck and Andreas Schliep. Okay, so Andy, before I close this podcast, I just wanted to ask one question because you have lots of experience in software development as well as dealing with different companies. How are you seeing enterprises will look like in 2 to 3 years from now, based on whatever your experience is? Because this is one question everyone is asking. Like, the news of layoffs are not encouraging. People are a bit worried about their jobs, and every few months, some CXO comes and says that, you know what, you guys will not be required to do anything, so there will not be any job for you. So it's kind of creates an anxiety. I'm sure there will be some changes that will happen because of this technology, but since it's a very common question, how do you see those changes are gonna happen in next 2 to 3 years?
Well, realistically, and maybe we get back to this in 3 years, so like in 2030. So
Yes.
realistically, I think we have a couple of factors coming together. So one thing is, of course, that AI can drastically improve the quality of the code we're preparing, of the work we're doing by having more angles, by giving more research, by adding more tests and whatever. So that's the potential. On the other hand, in order to implement this potential so that they actually properly work in enterprises in many domains, this will take another like 5 years. So that will be something around 2035 where AI augmented work is just established as agile practices are in organizations now.
Right.
So kind of a working practice. So currently it's mostly no longer a decision whether you do something agile or adaptive or inspect and adapt thing. Maybe it's a difference if you call it Scrum or not, but typically, yeah, this discussion is done more or less. But so with AI, currently enterprises will see several surprises. So the first surprise is that the technological and commercial development of AI will come to a natural limit,
Mhm.
which means that the services are getting more and more expensive. And in 3 years, many organizations have developed a strong dependency on these services, which means they run into one problem. The second problem is brain drain. So AI is tempting because then you say we don't need juniors any longer because my AI is just working like a junior, and all we need are senior developers that are steering that. But there's one point about senior developers. They're getting older too. So
Right.
within a couple of years, a next wave of boomers is reaching their retirement age. So, and if you don't work on turning juniors into like intermediate level people and then into seniors, if you don't work on that, you will end up with no one at all eventually. So, and if you don't have no one at all, and you don't have the beginners that you turn into intermediate, that means that all of a sudden, all the code, all the work, all the processes will be taken over by juniors from experts.
Right.
So another gap. So we have the price gap and we have the experience gap, and then we have the social gap. So currently organizations say, okay, we don't need the scrum masters, facilitators any longer because they're not value generating. We want to save money. So they save money on building up the proper social structures. And with AI, people even get more isolated. So lost within the process. And without people who are deliberately trying to mitigate this or work on structures that help mitigate this, we'll run into maybe more burnouts or people getting sick more often. So I think it's not going to be a nice 2030 for many enterprises.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's going to be a kind of a wake up between, let's say, between now and 20 or 35, kind of wake up call when many enterprises revise the strategy. So, like during COVID, everybody had to work from home, and working from home was totally cool. And then everybody had to work from home, and many companies completely dropped the offices and whatever. And then all of a sudden, people rolled back because they lost control and said, now everybody has to come back to the offices. So like the other way around. And this is a wave and counter wave that we see in all these industries. That's a typical pattern as well.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree, right?
It,
In
it's
2020,
amazing. It's amazing in the beginning, then everything will go batshit crazy. And afterwards, we have some more or less normal status and some integration.
that's right. In 2021, around 1 year after COVID, there were lots of articles saying that working from office is dead. Nobody is going to ever work from office. Even now, today, even the companies who are providing hybrid work, they want people to come to office at least for 2 to 3 days.
Yep.
So, yeah, you are right. It's a pattern.
See, yeah, Jeff Sutherland writes about how he has his kind of fully agentic Scrum team, and they're doing all the requirements, and they're doing all the estimates, and they're doing all the coding. And I say that's totally fine. Is anybody using what they're coding? I heard. I do. So it's totally. I can do this myself. So I at least have a system out there which is used by like 30 people. So, but yeah, the decision whether to build it in the first place, the strategical decision should be done by a human. That's
Right.
suggested by, and I've seen too many organizations who probably just currently created their company strategy as a ChatGPT output.
Yeah, I remember those tweets from Jeff where he was actually ranking which AI model is performing better than others, and I was also, waiting for some time to see the actual product where all these agentic codes are going. So as you said, I don't know if there is any product, but I have also seen few examples where somebody said that I used Claude to create 4 5 apps. It was there on LinkedIn again, and it is there in App Store with zero subscribers, zero money, and zero everything. So
Yes.
you shouldn't have built that. You should have built something useful.
Yeah, really. It's fun. And I also noticed some things when Cloud Code invented a requirement that I never stated, and it went into the acceptance test. And I discovered it like months later when I tried something that didn't work. Yeah. So they're even worse than juniors.
Right? Good point. Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you so much for taking time out today to come to this podcast.
Thank you, Daksh. Yeah.
I'm sure people are gonna, see it and they will get some or other benefit out of watching this. I'll share the details of your website, books, and your LinkedIn details in the description so that people can connect and reach out to you directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.